It started as just another peaceful afternoon at the retirement community, a place where stories of the past quietly echoed through shared laughter and slow walks. But today, that calm was about to be shattered. A loud roar of engines broke the silence as a group of bikers rolled in, looking to stir up trouble. They thought they'd found an easy target among the elderly residents, mocking and intimidating without a second thought. What they didn't know was that one man among them wasn't just any retiree. He was a battle-hardened veteran with a past full of grit and resilience. As the tension built and the bikers pushed too far, this veteran decided it was time to remind them why you never judge a book by its cover. What happened next? Let's just say they messed with the wrong man. The veteran, known around the community as Mr. Harris, kept mostly to himself. Neighbors knew he had served in the military, but few knew the full extent of his experience. Decades of discipline and survival instincts were hidden behind his calm smile and quiet routine. The bikers, loud and cocky, saw only an old man and underestimated him completely. They revved their engines, tossing insults and circling the property like cultures. Residents watched nervously from their porches, unsure if anyone would step in. But Mr. Harris didn't flinch. He slowly stood up from his bench, his sharp eyes locked onto the group. There was something in his stance, a quiet authority, that made even the loudest biker pause for a moment. But they laughed it off. Little did they know they had just crossed a line they couldn't uncross. The leader of the biker gang, a man named Rick, smirked as he stepped closer to Mr. Harris. "What's the matter, old man? Gonna call security?" He sneered, his crew laughing behind him. Mr. Harris didn't say a word. He simply stared, his silence unsettling. Nearby, a few residents nervously pulled out their phones, unsure whether to call for help or stay out of it. Among them was Sarah, a young caretaker who had always admired Mr. Harris's quiet strength. She knew there was more to him than met the eye, but even she wasn't sure how this would play out. Rick wasn't done. He reached for a flagpole near the community entrance, yanking on the American flag as a twisted joke. That was the moment Mr. Harris' expression changed. His calm demeanor hardened, and the air seemed to shift. Rick had no idea how dangerous that single act of disrespect had been. Mr. Harris took a slow step forward, his eyes locked on Rick. The laughter from the bikers began to fade as an eerie silence settled over the crowd. Rick tightened his grip on the flag, smirking but starting to feel uneasy. Mr. Harris' voice finally broke the silence, low and steady. "Put it down." The calmness in his tone carried a weight that even Rick couldn't ignore. But pride got the better of him. Or what? Rick snapped, yanking harder at the flag. Without warning, Mr. Harris moved with surprising speed, closing the gap between them. He didn't raise his fists or shout. Instead, he leaned in, speaking quietly. But whatever he said made Rick's smirk falter. The bikers shifted nervously, exchanging unsure glances. Sarah watched from a distance, heart pounding. The tension was suffocating. Something was about to happen, and no one could stop it. Rick's smirk faded completely as he stared into Mr. Harris's cold, unblinking eyes. But before Rick could react, the distant sound of motorcycles echoed from the road. More bikers, twice as many, rolled into the retirement community, engines growling louder than before. Sarah's breath caught in her throat. This wasn't just some reckless gang anymore. It was turning into something much bigger. Rick grinned again, his confidence restored. "Looks like I've got backup now, old man." The original group cheered, thinking the odds had shifted in their favor. But Mr. Harris didn't move. Slowly, he reached into his pocket and pulled out a worn military coin, holding it up for Rick to see. From the shadows near the community center, several older men quietly stepped forward, veterans, just like Mr. Harris. Their faces were calm, but their eyes were sharp. This wasn't over. It had just begun. Rick's smug grin faded as the group of veterans steadily approached, their presence commanding quiet respect. These weren't just old men. They were soldiers who had faced far worse than a gang of bikers. The air grew thick with tension. The bikers shifted uneasily, realizing they were no longer in control. Mr. Harris spoke calmly but firmly. "You came here looking for trouble. Now you found it." His words hung in the air like a warning. Rick's hand twitched, but before he could speak, one of the veterans, a tall man with a cane, stepped forward and pulled out his phone. Sirens wailed in the distance. Someone had already called the police. Rick cursed under his breath, signaling his crew to back off. Engines roared as the bikers scrambled to leave. But just as they fled, a police cruiser blocked the exit. The officers stepped out, taking in the scene. But the real twist came when one of the officers saluted Mr. Harris. "Good to see you again, Commander." Rick froze, realizing too late that Mr. Harris wasn't just any veteran. He was a decorated war hero. The bikers had messed with the wrong man in the wrong place. As the police escorted the bikers away, the retirement community slowly returned to its peaceful rhythm. Residents stepped out from their homes, some clapping quietly, others nodding in respect toward Mr. Harris and the other veterans. Sarah approached him with a relieved smile. "Commander, huh? Guess there's more to you than morning walks." Mr. Harris chuckled softly, slipping the military coin back into his pocket. Some lessons don't need to be taught twice. The veterans exchanged quiet glances before returning to their routines, their bond stronger than ever. The flag Rick had disrespected was carefully raised again, standing tall in the afternoon breeze. The community had been reminded that strength isn't always loud, and respect is earned, not demanded. And for anyone thinking of causing trouble again, they now knew this was a place fiercely protected by its own.